What's up there, Timon here, back with another travel video where today I'm going to be talking about a few things I wish I knew before I did volunteer work in Africa. Now, I did volunteer work not too long ago in Swaziland and South Africa with a company called All Out Africa. Now, they were really supportive both towards us, the volunteers, as well as the locals. So they were very good at the communication between these two parties. I booked with an agency called Travel Works, which is a German agency. Again, they were really helpful. Now, when I started my volunteer adventure in Swaziland, I had no idea on what to expect. I was told that I was going to be teaching small children English, and I was really overwhelmed by this task. And then later on I got into it a little bit more, moved to Cape Town, and was faced with another challenge there because it was very different to what I experienced so far in Swaziland. Here's some advice on how you can be prepared for that as well. Of course, I won't be able to cover everything. Not that there are billions and billions and there are 1,000 opportunities on how you can help, and I'll just be covering a few of them. But let's start with this. Where can you do volunteer work in Africa? There are so many different projects in so many different countries. You could go to their projects in Kenya, Swaziland, South Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania. Same with the companies, opportunities are endless. I'll just name a few of the most famous ones. The African Conservation Experience, Big Beyond, All Hands On, the list goes on. There are literally so many. There are also quite a few options regarding the work you'll be doing after you've chosen the company and the country you're going to work with. Sometimes you'll have to choose before you're going to the country, or sometimes you can still choose after you've got there. But normally it comes down to three things: teaching, building, or animal work. Now let's start with teaching. Don't worry, you won't have to be an English teacher to go teach in Africa. Most companies just require you to be quite fluent in talking English, and normally you will have to write a motivational letter, and after that you're all set. Your main task and goal, if you are teaching in a poor country, is to give value to the kids that you are teaching. So you're not really there to give them a certain information. It's more about bringing them together and playing with them and giving them, as I said, value. You can of course teach them the alphabet or do maths with them, but what they need most usually is your attention. And it really depends on the school how much you're actually free to teach, or how much you're just supportive in their process of learning. As I just said, you don't need to be worrying too much about teaching, especially because you're going to be finding out as soon as you get there on what levels there are and how much of a teacher you actually need to be. But also don't underestimate it too much, because you'll have to stand in front of a crowd, and you'll have to dare to speak up if a kid is not behaving, and also you'll have to prepare in advance what you're going to teach the kids. So maybe you'll get home from school and you won't be able to discover the country, but you'll have to work on tomorrow's lessons. So just keep that in mind if you're going for a teaching project in Africa. Another good way of really making a difference is building. A few of my friends have actually done that. They've worked on the infrastructure of the country. They build water tanks, and it really depends on the project you are working on. Sometimes you'll even build a school, so you get to see what you're doing, your results, just after a few weeks, which is really cool as well. A very different way of volunteering in Africa is working with animals. You can, for example, help orphaned or injured animals. You can help with conservation, so by monitoring whales and dolphins in Mozambique, for example. You can join veterinarians and learn about their work in the national parks, or you can generally help with research and conservation in a national park. Another not very common option there is photography, which is also in relation with research purposes. You'll be able to take pictures of the footprints of the animals in the national parks and things like that. There are a few different options out there, so check those out if you're interested in that kind of work. It's quite rare to find, and you'll have to apply, but if that's what you're into, you might find the perfect job for you there in Africa. Let's also talk about money quickly. Most of the time you'll still have to pay money to join a certain project and to stay at your accommodation, but of course that costs you a lot less than if you were just a tourist and traveling around the country. Of course, since it's called volunteer work, you won't get any money for your work, but you will most definitely get very important other things in return. There are also a few downsides to volunteer work. For example, it can get very frustrating if work mentality is not as it is in your home country. Project leaders might behave not as responsible as you would expect them. Kids might not show up at school because they can't, because they have to work at home. Maybe the teamwork with your teacher is not working as you expected. There are really lots of things where it can get really frustrating. Also keep in mind that you will only be able to make a small difference. Of course, in an individual perspective, if you are working with one child over a longer period of time, you will make a big difference for that single child, or also if you are building something or if you are helping an animal. But still, in general, keep in mind that the teachers, for example, are already trying. Basically, don't be disappointed if you don't get to reach your goal as soon as you expected. It normally just needs time, and few people need longer to learn things, and you obviously won't be able to teach the kids to read in just 1 week, for example. And of course, as I said already, you won't get paid for the work you're doing, which can also be frustrating from time to time, because you're really putting in effort and you're working with your hands. Maybe you're out in the heat and you are preparing your lessons. There's really a lot of work, and sometimes it gets a little annoying because you don't get anything money-wise in return. But there are also so many positive aspects of volunteering. There is really no better way to get to know a country. You live very closely with the local people. You get to have a big responsibility. You get to be proud of something after you've done it, and as I said already, it's also a cheaper way of traveling, more intense look at the country, and you get to really make an individual impact. Alright, this is the video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I see you next time.